listening to the Wrestle Havoc podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the Wrestle Havoc podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, here to review AEW Full Gear 2023, coming to us from the fabulous Kia Forum in Inglewood, California. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the Full Gear review. Of course, we are going to be talking about MJF versus Jay White, a match that was very good, but at the same time had a lot of logic gaps in the match, primarily with the involvement of Adam Cole. Yes, Adam Cole, who is currently injured, was on this show, and throughout the majority of this show, it was actually advertised as Adam Cole versus Switchblade Jay White, because on the 0 Hour buy-in show, on the pre-show, MJF got taken to the hospital, and they were playing into that storyline. We're going to be talking about that, the pros and cons to the Jay White and MJF match. I personally enjoyed the match, but I could understand as to why people were kind of, scratching their heads as to why AEW did what they did, especially with MJF going straight to the hospital and putting Adam Cole in the match as MJF's replacement, even though this is from a kayfabe perspective, Adam Cole is injured, and it just makes you look so stupid. But we're going to be talking about that. But we had a lot of other things that happened on this show. Of course, we had Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, the rematch for the International Championship. We had Adam Copeland, Darby Allin, and Sting taking on Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne, or as they like to call themselves, the Patriarchy. We're going to be talking about that because that was a phenomenal opener to Full Gear. We're also going to be talking about, of course, and it's Full Gear, and we have to talk about that fucking Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page Texas Deathmatch. That match was by far the best match on this whole show. Both Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page absolutely beat the living shit out of one another, and it's safe to say that Hangman Page lost twice to Swerve Strickland. And if we're going to go back into the history books 10 years from now and talk about Swerve Strickland and how he rose to superstardom, everybody is going to look back at this match that he had with Hangman Page, because this Texas death match, I've gone to GCW shows and I've seen death matches in person, and I know what a death match is, but if you're talking about from a national wrestling company's perspective, this was by far the best Texas death match that not only we have seen from AEW, but really the best death match we have seen probably of all time in any national company that we have seen that takes a match of this caliber and it really, you put it on national TV or on pay-per-view. This match was off the frickin' charts. I can't stress enough how good this match was. I'm going to be talking about that as well. And of course, the big signing. Yes, we had a big signing signed to All Elite Wrestling, and it is none other than the aerial assassin himself. Yes, Will Ospreay is All Elite. But you have to ask yourself, but Rick, isn't Will Ospreay still under contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling? Yes, and he is still going to be finishing off his contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. But AEW, of course, I assume had some sort of deal with Will Ospreay and New Japan to sign Will Ospreay earlier on, but he could still finish up with New Japan. And then once he's done with New Japan, he will go straight to AEW. So right now, the hottest free agent is no more as Will Ospreay. The hottest free agent in the industry is now All Elite with All Elite Wrestling. And honestly, this is probably one of the best signings that they have ever done, because if you think about it, there's been a lot of signings that AEW has done that have been, kind of questionable, and some signings that you thought were going to be great, but they ended up turning out kind of eh. Will Ospreay is a different kind of cat. Same thing with Jay White. Jay White, when he first came in, a lot of people immediately jumped the gun and were like, oh my God, this guy is not going to be utilized to his full potential. But look at this. Jay White is now in the main event of a pay-per-view. Even though he lost strong. And not only that, Jay White is in the main event of a pay-per-view, and he has been elevated to the next level. That's going to be the same thing with Will Ospreay. I guarantee you, man, Will Ospreay is going to be the guy that can help not elevate AEW, but really help elevate himself to the next level, and he's going to really be that main event level guy heading into the next few years when he is in AEW. So I'm going to be talking about Will Ospreay and much more right here on the AEW Full Gear 2023 review. Before I get on with all this craziness regarding AEW Full Gear, please make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, follow me on social media. I am on social media. I am on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So if you guys want to follow me on social media, the links will be in the description below. All right, without any further ado, let's get on with Full Gear. You know, fun fact, this is the first time on the history of this channel that I have covered a Full Gear pay-per-view. Yes, it's very weird. You know, I haven't covered any Full Gear ever since I started the channel. I didn't cover 2021 or 2022. I did attend Full Gear last year, though. I'll tell you that right now. I did attend Full Gear last year, but throughout the history of me doing this channel, I haven't covered a Full Gear review, nor have I ever even covered a Survivor Series, which is fucking crazy to think. Usually throughout the fall, I'm like at my most busiest, so like my consistency kind of fucks up. But yeah, man, I'm trying to change that, and I'm here with my Full Gear review right here on the channel. Of course, let's kick off the Full Gear review with the 0 Hour, as we had MJF defending his Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. You would think alone, because Adam Cole is currently injured, against the Guns. And by no surprise, his partner was Samoa Joe. Yes, throughout the past couple of weeks on Dynamite, Samoa Joe has been offering his, friendship, and he's really been offering he wanted to offer his help to MJF. And even when Adam Cole was, on those Zoom calls and those backstage interview segments, he even told MJF, bro, I think it's smart to take Joe's advice. But MJF knows everybody is gunning after him, considering he is the AEW World Champion. And basically the deal is, if MJF takes this help from Samoa Joe, MJF needs to give Samoa Joe a title shot and a rematch for the AEW World Championship. I'll tell you this right now, man. Samoa Joe's on another fucking level right now. And I wouldn't be surprised. And, since we know Samoa Joe is going to get that title shot after him teaming up with MJF, I wouldn't be surprised if they booked that main event match at World's End, considering that's going to be the next pay-per-view in December on the day before New Year's Eve, which is hilarious to think. But I assume that's going to be the main event. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad at the fact if Samoa Joe even beat MJF for the AEW World Championship. Because if you think about it, when was the last time Samoa Joe held a World Championship? The last time he held a World Championship was the NXT Championship when he was running roughshod all over NXT back in 2015 and 2016. That was the last time he was an actual world champion. Yeah, he did hold other mid-card titles in the WWE. Yeah, he did hold the Ring of Honor, television title, which he vacated alone by himself a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite, which I actually thought was a smart decision to make. And I know a lot of people were upset at the fact that Samoa Joe just relinquished that Ring of Honor TV title, even though he had a long title reign with it, and he was considered the longest reigning ROH TV champion of all time. But you have to ask yourself this question. Who was elevated, the title or Samoa Joe? Samoa Joe, yeah, was elevated, but let's be real honest with ourselves. That title that he held for all that time, for well over a year after beating Minoru Suzuki, that title hasn't meant jack shit. So honestly, if he relinquished that title, I would assume he would go after the AEW World Championship as he is. And of course, I would assume he would win that AEW World Championship. That's just me. But him relinquishing the ROH TV title, I'm not mad about whatsoever, considering that title does not mean jack shit whatsoever. But with Samoa Joe, I feel like Samoa Joe is really, he really deserves his flowers, and I do believe he should be the AEW World Champion at some point. But I'm not going to go through this whole match because I didn't really take notes on the tag team title match that happened at the 0 Hour. But with MJF and Samoa Joe were really tagging each other in and out throughout the majority of the match, but they ended up winning the match and retaining the ROH tag team titles. But near the end of that match, Adam Cole showed up, basically attacking everybody else, or helping MJF out. And what happened was MJF, after the match, he got taken out by the Guns, and he got taken out in a stretcher. And Adam Cole, who was in crutches, could not do anything about it. And that was basically the big cliffhanger on the 0 Hour, which led you to the pay-per-view, which I absolutely like, by the way. It is very smart, in my opinion, that they put MJF, considering he is one half of the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, in these big ROH Tag Team title matches, defending his title on the 0 Hour, because then they can do some sort of big angle at the end of the pay-per-view to really get those last-minute buyers for Full Gear or for whatever pay-per-view it could be. And we've seen that with Allin, with Adam Cole and MJF, beating and winning. Who do they beat for the ROH Tag Team titles? They beat Aussie Open. They beat Aussie Open for the ROH Tag Team titles, but it's a great move to really get those last minute pay-per-view buyers. So in my opinion, I think it was a smart choice. The angle of MJF getting taken out in a stretcher and getting sent to the hospital really affected the main event that we were going to be getting later on tonight from a kayfabe perspective. Not in a real-life perspective, in a kayfabe perspective. And at first, I was like, oh, okay, it's actually very smart for them to do that. But at the end of the show, there was really no big payoff. I mean, you kind of knew MJF was going to come back on the show, but we're going to be talking about that as we get through this show. Okay. Starting with the main card, we have Adam Copeland, Darby Allin, and Sting taking on the Patriarchy. Christian Cage, the current TNT champion, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. Overall, thoughts on this match? This match was off the freaking charts. It's very smart for AEW not to really, I don't want to say hot shot, but book a one-on-one match between Adam Copeland and Christian Cage this early on. Clearly, they're building this whole feud long term, and we're definitely going to be getting the match sometime down the line. I do not see it being at World's End. I see it maybe at a Revolution. Hell, I could go as far as to say maybe they can drag it all the way to Wembley next year. I may be wrong. Or they could give you guys the match maybe at a Revolution or a Double or Nothing next year, and then they could build a story of them kind of reuniting as a tag team, because that was the biggest reason as to why Adam Copeland came into AEW. He came into AEW because he wanted to tag team with his best friend Christian once again and show them what tag team wrestling is all about. But, of course, Christian Cage has this new persona, and he's doing the best work of his career, and he shows no signs of slowing down. Of course, this is Sting's retirement tour as well, and this is Sting's final match at the Kia Forum, and they really played into that very well, especially after the end of the match. At the end of the match, they really gave you a standing ovation, so that was great stuff. But nonetheless, this match was freaking awesome. It was action left and right. Adam Copeland, Darby Allin, and Sting. Bro, the trio, just the trio of Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin was off the chain. I love that trio. It's just freaking badass. Seeing Edge tag teaming with Sting is something that I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. But hey, man, we finally got that. But of course, the crowd is singing Metalingus by Alter Bridge. Darby and Nick Wayne starts. We get a side headlock takeover by Nick Wayne. We get a bunch of "Who's Your Daddy" chants. Darby goes for the deep arm drag, and then he goes for the second arm drag. Sting makes the tag, but then he sends Nick Wayne to the outside. Then he sends Nick Wayne to the barricade, and then he sends him back into the ring. After that, Nick tags in Christian, but Edge wants to tag in. And by the way, I'm going to call him Edge throughout when I'm going through this match because I still call him Edge. Sting then tags Edge. Both men face off, and then we get a bunch of holy shit chants. Cage then goes, with his intelligence, tags Luchasaurus. So basically what happened was Edge tags in, and then Christian was the legal man, and both men faced off. Of course, a big teaser for their upcoming big match, which we know will happen, but we do not know when. But, of course, Cage, with his douchebaggery, tags in Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus is in control over Edge. We get a kick by Edge, followed by a Russian leg sweep on Luchasaurus, and then he hits the swinging neck breaker. And then Darby goes for the tag, and then he gets caught, and he gets sent into the corner. Then we get a sunset flip by Darby, but then we get a choke by Luchasaurus. We then get a right hand by Luchasaurus, but then Darby counters a chokeslam, but then Christian Cage interferes. Darby then gets chokeslammed on the apron by Luchasaurus. Dude got railed on his fucking back. I'll tell you that right now. Sends Darby back into the ring. Then we get a stomp by Luchasaurus. Christian Cage tags in. Then he is in control. Nick Wayne then goes for the tag after that. He works on Darby. We get a series of kicks on his back, and then we get a cover by Nick and a 1 count. We then get a backbreaker by Darby, but then Nick Wayne mocks Ric Flair, who was actually in the corner of Sting, Darby Allin, and Adam Copeland. And Ric Flair, he was just standing, looking at Nick Wayne, mocking Ric Flair and his strut. After that, Luchasaurus tags in. We get a bunch of overhand chops by Luchasaurus, and then he picks up Darby and he slams him down. Nick Wayne goes for a senton, but then we get a cover by Nick Wayne and a kick out. He sends Darby into the corner, knocking down Christian Cage, but then Darby goes to the top. Nick Wayne goes for the uppercut, but then Darby bites his fingers. Darby then goes for the sunset flip powerbomb. Christian Cage crawls out of the ring, and then he sends Edge to the ring post, but then Luchasaurus takes out Sting to the outside. Cage goes for the tag, but then Cage drags Darby across the ring. Cage goes for a series of chops on Darby, but then he hammer throws Darby into the corner. Cage then almost hits the spear. Yes, he was going to go for the spear, but then Darby ducks. Both men knock each other down, but then Edge makes the tag. He goes after Christian Cage, but then Cage runs to the outside. After that, he fights off Luchasaurus. He hits the Impaler. After that, he spears Luchasaurus on the outside, but then he picks up Nick Wayne, and then he throws him on Luchasaurus on the outside. After that, Darby goes for a senton or an elbow suicida or a tope on the outside, whatever you want to call it. It was a tope, basically. Sting is on the apron. He takes out both Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus, but then Ric Flair is smiling watching this match. Then he sends Luchasaurus in the ring. Edge almost hits the spear, but then he gets caught. Sting comes in, he gets caught, but then both men fight off Luchasaurus. Sting goes for the Scorpion Death Drop, and Edge goes for the elbow drop combination, which was freaking awesome to see. Then Darby sends Nick to the ring, but then Sting and Edge pick up Nick Wayne. Darby goes for the crossbody with the other two hitting the double suplex. After that, Luchasaurus comes in. Luchasaurus then goes for a shot to the back of the neck of Adam Copeland. Then Christian Cage sees Ric Flair, and Ric Flair almost gets physical. From We Have Feared, Tony Khan would love to book a Ric Flair and Christian Cage match, I would assume, right? No, please do not book that match. But Christian Cage almost sees Ric Flair. Ric Flair almost gets physical, and then Christian, being the douchebag that he is, low blows the shit out of Ric Flair, and then he comes in with the belt, and by accident, he hits Luchasaurus. Edge sees Christian, and then Edge chases Christian Cage, but then Cage, being, again, the douchebag that he is and the pussy that he is, he jumps over the guardrail and runs away. So he runs away to the crowd, leaving Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus high and dry. After that, Edge goes for the spear on Luchasaurus. Darby ends up hitting the coffin drop, and we get a cover. And Sting, Darby Allin, and Adam Copeland get the win over the Patriarchy. After that, Darby gets the mic, and he says, "This is Sting's last fucking time at the Forum. Let's hear some fucking noise." Darby Allin, being the awesome dude that he is, the cool dude that he is, giving the standing ovation for the legend known as Sting. And AEW really spent like almost 10 minutes, probably less than I mentioned, giving the standing ovation for Sting, because of course this is Sting's retirement tour, and this is Sting's last time wrestling at the Forum. So that is great to see, and honestly, it was a great opening match. I enjoyed it for what it was. From the story perspective, from the teaser of Edge and Christian about to go at it, like all that stuff was just off the chain, and I absolutely loved that. Again, the teaming with Darby Allin, Sting, and Adam Copeland is everything that you needed to have, and it was only right for the baby faces to get the win. So those were my thoughts on this opening 6-man tag team match. All right, moving on. We got Tony Schiavone on the stage, and we get an update on MJF after he got attacked after the match, after his ROH tag team title match by the Guns. What happens is Bullet Club Gold comes out. Jay White comes out and saying that it is his title, and MJF is injured and he won't be able to defend the title tonight. And Tony Schiavone says that the match between MJF and Jay White has been canceled, and now, by default, your new AEW World Champion is MJF. And that right there made no fucking sense. Why would you have that in any fucking contract? Why would you have in any contract, if the match ends up getting canceled, the champion forfeits his title, and, the challenger immediately gets the title? That is the stupidest shit ever. I'll tell you that right now. But what happens? Adam Cole comes out with crutches and says, he says, "Jay, there isn't a shot in hell that you are leaving with Max's world title. I made a promise to MJF, and I talked to Tony Khan, and if MJF can't defend his AEW World Championship, he will do it for him. One leg or not, tonight's main event will be Jay White versus Adam Cole, baby." Jay White kind of laughs, and he questions Adam Cole. And he mentions him taking him out at Forbidden Door last year, of course, mentioning the concussion that he suffered, and talks about how he will take him out for good. So now the advertised match is not MJF versus Jay White. The advertised match for Full Gear is Adam Cole versus Jay White. Now, if there was going to be any big payoff at the end of the show, I would understand as to why they did that. But at the same time, looking at the main event that we got, even though it was a good match, there was really no big thing that happened at the end of the show. Everybody just left happy. MJF ended up retaining his title and celebrated with Adam Cole. Nothing really happened. The question that I have to ask myself, and really the question that everybody needs to ask themselves when watching this show, was the angle that they did on the pre-show really necessary? And then was it really necessary to promote Adam Cole versus Jay White in the main event, knowing regardless MJF is going to come back and coming out strong and, he's going to retain the title, blah, blah, blah. He retains the AEW World Championship with no real big moment happening and no real reason as to why all of this has been going on. Really, there was no reason for AEW to really do an angle like this. I would understand as to why they did an angle like this to really, gain a lot of people, talking. They really want people talking and they really want a big angle. I would understand that. But again, from what we have seen in the main event and really after the match happened, there was nothing really that really happened. We got no devil reveal, which honestly I think was expected. If you thought that we were going to be getting a double reveal in the main event tonight at Full Gear, you are sadly mistaken. That I feel like we're getting that is getting saved for World's End. But still, we had no attack by the devil, no nothing. It was just MJF getting injured, Adam Cole showed up with crutches and blah, 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 all that shit. Not only that, out of all the people that you were putting in replacement of MJF, I understand it's the storyline, I get it. But out of all the people that you were putting in replacement of MJF, it's Adam Cole, a guy who is currently injured. That makes no sense. And it's going to make not even more sense when you actually watch the match and the entrances are going on, because what happens is Adam Cole, right? Adam Cole comes out with no security, nothing. Nobody is stopping him from wrestling this match. He's literally in crutches right now, right? And then right as soon as that match between Adam Cole and Jay White starts and MJF comes out in the ambulance looking all like Superman and stuff, he comes out and people are just like stopping MJF left and right. They should be doing that for Adam Cole. Why are they doing that for MJF? It's those small things that really kind of ticked people off and really had people scratch their heads. So I feel like, there was a lot of, just logic issues that this whole angle did. And there was really no point in doing an angle like this. Jay White and MJF could have easily went out there and just given you a banger of a match and that was that. But they just went with the angle with Adam Cole replacing MJF, which I would understand if it played in for the story, but really you had nothing that would happen after the match. So really, what was the point of you doing all that you did on this pay-per-view? That's just me. But as it stands right now, it is Adam Cole versus Jay White for the AEW World Championship. Of course, again, I'm talking from a kayfabe perspective. Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley for the International Championship. Of course, this is the rematch from All Out. And a lot has happened since All Out, of course. Orange Cassidy lost the International Championship from Jon Moxley at All Out. Then fast forward to Grand Slam, Jon Moxley dropped his International Championship via, I believe, an audible because of an injury that he suffered, and it was a concussion, to Rey Fenix, which then led to, I believe, a rematch between, not a rematch, but we had Orange Cassidy then a couple weeks later win the belt back from Rey Fenix, and then that led us to this match. And the story of this match is actually, if you think about it, it kind of makes perfect sense because Jon Moxley got the job done. He beat Orange Cassidy, but all of a sudden he had a concussion. He dropped the belt to Phoenix, and all of a sudden, throughout that time that Jon Moxley was out, Orange Cassidy just came in and he just took the spot that Jon Moxley beat Orange Cassidy for, and now he is running around with the International Championship once again, and Jon Moxley, of course, is fucking pissed. This match was great. It's hard to really, debate whether the first match or this match was better. This match was phenomenal. I enjoyed this match. This match was relatively short, and if you really compare it to the match that they had at All Out, the story of this match was much better than the match that they had at All Out, but again, the story was still really powerful at All Out. But again, this story was very good too. And honestly, I had a blast watching this match. I mean, both men just absolutely, again, tore the house down. And let's go through this match. Of course, it's Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley for the International Championship. Orange Cassidy tries to go for the attack, but Moxley is in control. He sends Orange to the outside and then onto the announce table. We get repeated right hands by Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley then picks up Orange Cassidy. Then after that, we get a chop by Moxley in the corner. After that, Orange fights back, but then Moxley hits a chop once again. We get repeated stomps by Moxley. After that, he drives his boot on Orange Cassidy, and then we get another boot. Orange then runs into I deadass wrote in my notes a black hole slam. It's a boss man slam, but I called it the black hole slam. Of course, I'm talking about Abyss from TNA. Moxley applies the Texas Cloverleaf, and then Orange tries to fight back, but then Moxley hits a stomp on Orange. Moxley then scratches the back of Orange Cassidy, and then he bites the face of Orange on the top rope. Orange then fights back. He scratches the back of Moxley, and then he bites the head of Moxley. Moxley then goes for repeated headbutts, but then Cassidy is on the apron. Moxley then sends up the Death Rider off the top rope, but then Orange fights back. We get a headbutt by Orange, but then we get repeated headbutts by Moxley. Orange he tries to go for the superplex, and he ends up hitting the superplex. At this point, Moxley is bleeding. Orange is on the top. He hits a diving DDT, and then he follows up with a tornado DDT. We get a cover and a 1 count. Orange then goes for repeated kicks on Moxley, and then he, once he goes for those kicks, the kicks keep getting harder and harder. Of course, shades from their match at All Out. Moxley then gets himself back up. He runs to the outside. Orange ends up going for a tope. Then he goes for a second tope. Moxley's on the top of the announce table. We get repeated right hands by Orange Cassidy. Then Orange ends up going for a third tope suicida. And then Orange goes to the top. He gets caught into the kick. Moxley tries to go for the Death Rider, but Orange Cassidy counters the Death Rider into the Stunt Dog Millionaire. Moxley then drives his elbows onto the shoulder of Cassidy, but then we get a bunch of rights and lefts by Moxley. Moxley then transitions into a Bulldog. After that, Moxley ends up going for the pile driver, but then Orange ends up picking him up. Moxley goes down. Then Orange Cassidy ends up going for the PK. Jesus Christ, how many wrestlers have been doing the PK in AEW for the past couple months? A shit ton of people have been doing the PK. Then he applies the red rum onto the turnbuckle pad, and then he gets exposed. I completely messed up my notes right there. My apologies. Orange then gets caught into a cutter. We get a gotch-style pile driver by Moxley, and then we get a cover into near fall. Moxley then mocks Orange Cassidy with his fake kicks. Orange gets himself back up, but then Orange gets his hands in his pockets. Moxley then runs headfirst onto the turnbuckle steel. After that, Moxley has no idea where he is. Orange goes for not 1, not 2, not 3, or I should say 3 Orange punches. We get a roll-up by Orange, and we get a near fall. Then we get a 4th Orange punch. Then a 5th, and then Moxley gets up once again, and then a 6th, followed by the beach break, and we get a cover, and Orange Cassidy retains the AEW International Championship, and he beats Jon Moxley clean dead center in the ring. Again, great match overall. The story made total sense. The ending of the match, the finish of the match was everything that it needed to be. Very similar to the finish that Jon Moxley did with Orange Cassidy, but in this case, the kind of, if you think about it, the roles were reversed, and Orange Cassidy finally, dethroned Jon Moxley, the man who he wasn't able to defeat, and now Orange Cassidy is running roughshod with the International Championship. Now, what's interesting about this is, since Orange Cassidy is once again the international champion, who should we, find to dethrone, I should say, Orange Cassidy for that international title? There's 2 guys that come to mind. One is easily Konosuke Takeshita with the work that he's been doing with the Don Callis family. I think it makes sense for a guy like Konosuke Takeshita to really beat Orange Cassidy, because from the work that he has been doing in the ring, Konosuke Takeshita can easily just beat the shit out of Orange Cassidy. Or another guy is Roosh. Roosh is another one, but if I'm willing to bet money, I think Konosuke Takeshita makes more sense out of the 2. I think Roosh will get his moment further on down the line in the future, but for now, I do think Konosuke Takeshita could easily be the guy to beat Orange Cassidy for that international championship. All right, moving on. We got Toni Storm's Hollywood Homecoming taking on Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Championship. This match was all right. I wasn't really the biggest fan of this match, to be quite honest with you. coming into this match, I already knew Toni Storm, with the work that she has been doing throughout the past couple of weeks on Dynamite, and really, if you think about it, the past couple of months, with this new gimmick, this new Marilyn Monroe gimmick that she has going on, which has been very entertaining, and honestly and easily, if you think about it, the best thing going on in AEW's women's division right now. I think it's pretty much safe to say that Hikaru Shida was going to drop the AEW Women's World Championship on this show, and boy, I was right. The match was all right. But there was one big nitpick that I saw in this match that I absolutely did not like, and that just pissed me off watching this match. And it's really a common occurrence in a lot of matches in AEW that really a lot of people don't talk about a lot, but we really need to talk about it because it's starting to get really annoying. But I'll talk about that as I go through this match. Both women exchange strikes. Then after that, Storm is in control. We get a running knee by Shida. Shida goes for repeated chops. Meanwhile, Mariah May, who is officially All Elite, the IWC was really, hyping up Mariah May. I have seen a little bit of her work from Stardom, and apparently she's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. Mariah May was All Elite. It was announced a couple of weeks ago in a random backstage segment, but clearly they're doing some sort of storyline with Mariah May and Toni Storm, which now we understand why AEW is doing what they're doing, and it makes total sense. Shida continues to go for repeated chops. Storm fights back with chops of her own. We get a running bulldog by timeless Toni Storm. She ends up hitting the elbow strike, and then we get a cover and a 1 count. Storm runs into a knee strike by Shida. Shida is on the second rope, but then we get repeated rights by Shida. Storm escapes. She ends up missing a missile drop kick, and then we get a cover by Storm and a kick out. Storm throws Shida down, and then we get a cover and another kick out. Storm meets with her butler, Luther, and then Luther gives her the shoe. Yes, watch for the shoe. And what happens is Aubrey Edwards takes it away, but Storm ends up having another shoe, and she hits Shida with the other shoe with the point of the heel. After that, we get a cover by Toni Storm and a kick out. Shida ends up going for the strong zero on Storm, but then Shida continues to fight off Storm. Storm fights back with a series of palm strikes, and then we get a high kick by Shida, but then Shida goes for the Falcon Arrow. Then we get a cover by Shida and a near fall. Shida's on the top. She misses the Meteora, but then Shida gets down with her knee, when her knees gave out. Storm counters Shida into an ankle lock. Shida makes it to the bottom rope, but then Storm has the shoe. We then get an elbow strike knocking out Storm, but then Shida has the kendo stick. But then Luther comes in, and she basically hits it with the low blow. After that, Shida goes for repeated shots with the kendo stick on Luther, but then Storm puts a pan on her tights, in the back of her tights, without the referee looking. And this is where things kind of went a little wanky and a little just stupid on all levels. So Storm puts the pan in the back of her tights, right? And what happens is Storm blocks the katana, and we get a shit ton of roll-up reversals. And we get a near fall, right? Storm ends up going for the German suplex. The referee is standing right there. Think about this. The referee is standing right there, and the pan is literally sticking out from behind. How the fuck does the referee not see that? How does the referee not see that? Seriously. The referee needs to see shit like that. And this is a common occurrence in AEW, man. If there's one consistent complaint that I have a lot about AEW, and this is not just now, it has really been the case throughout the years. The referees are looked at so stupid. Like, the referees, the way that, and it's probably not their fault, but I don't know, man. The referees just look so stupid in a lot of these matches. How the fuck do you not see the pan in the back of the tights sticking out on Toni Storm? How do you not see that? I don't know. That's just me. But the pan was literally right there, and you did not see that. That could have easily been a disqualification. I do not know, man. The referees, I don't know, man. The referees in AEW are something else. What happens? And after that, Toni Storm goes for the hip attack, and we get a cover, and Toni Storm wins the AEW Women's Championship. And after the match, Mariah May, the super fan I should call her, Mariah May comes in and gives flowers to Toni Storm, timeless Toni Storm, and she wins the title. And honestly, this was the right decision to make. Hikaru Shida, I don't give a shit what anybody says, and I love Hikaru Shida, but she has been a transitional champion. Shida has really done nothing. A lot of the matches that Shida's had haven't really been good, and it's not really her, it's just the opponents that she has had. And honestly, in my opinion, they should have given the belt to Toni Storm months ago, but finally, you know, Toni Storm has the women's championship, and, you know, all life is good right now. Toni Storm is the champion, and now all eyes are set on Toni Storm. Moving on, we got Ricky Starks and Big Bill taking on the Kings of the Black Throne, of course, from the House of Black, Malachi Black and Brody King, taking on LFI's Rush and Dralistico, taking on FTR in a ladder match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. This ladder match was insane. Absolutely insane on all levels. Because just, if you think about it, when you watch ladder matches, you see a lot of crazy shit. Especially in AEW, when you see a lot of ladder matches in AEW, like, they just do the craziest shit unimaginable. And this was no exception. We've seen a lot of crazy stuff in this match in particular, and we're going to be talking about that. Big Bill and Brody King face off, but then FTR come in for the attack. A brawl breaks loose. Then after that, a ladder is set up in between the apron and the barricade on the outside. So what happens is the ladder's in the ring. Malachi pendulums the ladder onto the face of Dax Harwood. After that, Rush sets up the ladder. And both men climb back down. They fight it out. Both men exchange chops. Rush misses a drop kick, but then Dralistico comes in. Cash then throws himself with a tope on the outside. Dralistico is in the ring. He hits a senton over the top rope, but then Starks goes to the top. Malachi comes in. He fights off Ricky Starks, but then Malachi goes for a moonsault on the outside. Starks goes to the top, but then Dax comes up. He hits a superplex on Starks on everyone on the outside. Brody King and Big Bill face off. Both are in the ring. We get a bunch of meat chants, shades of the Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs match. Both men exchange strikes. The meat chants continue. Rush and Dax Harwood grab a respective ladder, and then they hit Big Bill and Brody King. Then they hit each other with the ladders, and then after that, Dax throws the ladder at Rush. Dax goes full Terry Funk, spinning the fucking ladder around, and he's spinning himself with that ladder. Dralistico goes for a dropkick on the ladder, but then Dralistico goes to the top. He fights off Cash. We get a corkscrew kick by Cash, but then Dralistico climbs up the ladder. Cash pushes him off, but then Rush fights off Cash, but then we get a kick to the back of Cash. After that, Rush does his pose, and then we get a chop by Rush, but then Cash continues. He catches Rush in a power slam, but then Cash goes to the top, climbing the ladder. Malachi then comes in. He fights off Cash, but then Cash fights back. After that, Rush runs the ropes, but then Malachi slingshots the ladder onto Cash. Cash then is placed onto the ladder, but then Malachi goes to the top. Dax comes in, but then Brody comes in. We get repeated chops by Brody King. Cash goes for the low blow on Malachi Black, but then Cash hits a pile driver on Malachi on the ladder. Brody King then goes for the tope, but then lands into the ladder by Big Bill. Starks comes in. He fights off everybody. He spears Dralistico, and then he spears Rush. We then get a tornado DDT on Dax. Starks goes for, of course, his own version of the old school. And then he slams Cash with a backdrop driver. Brody King at this point is busted wide open. Both Malachi and Starks exchange strikes. We get a back elbow by Malachi, but then Starks throws Malachi to the ladder into the corner. King goes for the body block on Starks. Then he ends up hitting a dropkick onto the ladder into the corner. We then get a running cannonball by Brody King, but then King sets up the ladder into the center of the ring. He climbs the ladder, but then Big Bill lifts the ladder, dropping Brody onto the ladder in the corner. Then we get a high kick by Dralistico, but then we get a springboard by Dralistico. Then he gets caught, and then Bill goes for a chokeslam. Rush comes in. He places the ladder on Bill into the corner, but then we get a running drop kick on Bill into the ladder. Rush then climbs up the rope onto the top onto the ladder. Starks comes in. Both men fight it out. Dax grabs the ladder. At this point, everybody is coming up on their own respective ladder, so everybody's just going to go up. And what happens is Rush and Starks fall. Brody drops Dax down, but then he slams Cash with a backdrop. Malachi then has Dralistico up. Dralistico ends up going for a Poison Rana. After that, we get a springboard countered by Brody King, and then Brody King ends up going with a gonzo bomb on Dralistico through the ladder on the outside. Or I should say on the ladder. After that, Brody King is placed on the ladder. Cash goes to the top. Bill comes in. And what happens, he gets hit with the ladder. Cash is still onto the top, but then Cash ends up going with a crossbody. He ends up hitting a fucking crossbody on Brody King on the ladder. That is insane. Dax is climbing the ladder. Starks is climbing as well. After that, Black Mass by Malachi on Dax. Cash then sends Malachi out, but then Cash comes up the ladder. Starks takes out Cash, and Starks ends up getting both belts, and Starks and Big Bill retain the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Again, craziness on all levels. Everybody, did some crazy freaking spots, especially that crossbody spot. Everybody talks about how Dax is probably going to end up being a singles guy in the future. Cash is one crazy motherfucker. Cash will be doing the craziest shit in a lot of these matches. It's insane. But nonetheless, Starks and Big Bill retain the AEW Tag Team Championships, and honestly, that is great because I'm actually digging the work that Ricky Starks and Big Bill have been doing throughout the past couple of weeks. So, yeah. Moving on, we got a three-way match for the TBS Championship. We have Kris Statlander defending her title against Julia Hart, taking on Sky Blue. This was a pretty, it was an all right match. Really, the match started to get more intense, and really, I started to get more invested in the match really near the end. Really, throughout from the beginning to the middle, I was kind of a little out of it when it came to the match, and the crowd was kind of dead, and it seemed like the crowd didn't really give a shit. But really, by the end of the match, and really as we were headed towards that finish, that is when the match really started to really get good, in my opinion. And, of course, we saw Julia Hart win the TBS Championship, which I think is the right decision to make, but also it causes a lot of concern from Kris Statlander's perspective, and I'll be talking about Kris Statlander after we finish going through this match. Statlander slams Sky, and then Julia gets slammed on Sky. Statlander escapes with a double clothesline. Too bad MJF and Adam Cole aren't here to see this. Then it's a double clothesline on both women. After that, Julia gets taken to the top rope. Sky goes for the roll-up, and then Julia is upside down, staring eye to eye with Sky. After that, Julia is on the back of Statlander, and then Julia gets dropped down. Julia, after that, we get a knee strike by Sky on Statlander, followed by a cannonball by Julia. We then get a Hurricane Rana on Statlander on the outside, but then Sky and Julia go for the double team on the champion. Statlander suplexes both women on the floor, and then she sends Julia back into the ring. We then get a double thrust kick by Sky and Julia on Statlander. Sky then offers a handshake, and then we get a left-handed shake. But then what happens is Julia attacks Sky Blue. Both women brawl it out, and after that we get the PK. Here we go with that PK once again by Sky Blue. Statlander goes for a back suplex. After that, she sends Julia into the corner, but then Sky runs into the corner, and then we get the uppercut by Julia Hart. We then get the roll-up by Sky, and then we get a near fall. Julia then lands into a roundhouse kick, but then Sky ends up going for a neck breaker on Statlander. Julia goes for the lariat, and then after that, Julia goes to the top, but then we get a thrust kick on Julia by Sky Blue. She picks up Julia, but then Julia fights back. Statlander ends up hitting a lariat. Statlander then goes for the Blue Thunder Bomb, but then we get a cover into near fall. Sky goes for the Hurricane Rana, but then Statlander has her up. She flattens Sky face first to the mat, and then Statlander drags Sky into the corner. Statlander goes to the top, but then Julia knocks her down onto the outside. Julia's on the top. She hits a moonsault, and then we get a cover into near fall when Statlander comes in and drags Julia to the outside. Julia then runs into a power slam by Statlander on the outside. Statlander gets hit with a kick, and then we get a spinning kick by Sky Blue. Statlander catches Sky from a crossbody, but then she ends up hitting the Saturday Night Fever, but what happens is Sky Blue ends up countering that Saturday Night Fever into a roll-up. We get a near fall. Statlander picks up Sky Blue, but then Sky hits the Code Blue. We get a cover and another near fall. Later on, Julia Hart hits a lariat from the back of the head, or I should say on the back of the head of Statlander. And then Julia applies the Heartless Submission on, I believe it was on, who did Julia apply the Heartless Submission? I believe it was on Sky. Correct me if I'm wrong. My notes flat out said Julia applies the Heartless Submission on Julia. That clearly makes no sense. I believe it was on, I assume it was on Sky Blue. Statlander then goes for a German suplex on Julia and then on Sky. We get repeated German suplexes left and right, and then we get the spinning Saturday Night Fever. And we get a cover by Statlander, but what happens is Julia comes in, taking out Statlander. Julia picks up the scraps, as the commentator stated on commentary, and gets the 1, 2, 3, and Julia Hart, with Statlander having the match won, Julia Hart swooped in and wins, for the first time in her career, the TBS Championship. This was a great match. The last few moments of the match, as I said, were great, and that was what really got me hooked into this match. The rest of the match was all right. In my opinion, the crowd felt kind of dead, and I wasn't really that invested in the whole match, to say the least. But again, what are my thoughts on Julia Hart winning the TBS Championship? I think this is a great move, especially for Julia Hart, because Julia Hart, I don't care what anybody says, but besides Toni Storm, Julia Hart and the character development of Julia Hart, I really have been enjoying what they have been doing with Julia Hart. They really took this whole House of Black thing for Julia Hart and really amped it up to 1 million, and look where it has gotten Julia Hart at. Now she is the TBS champion, and I think she's going to have that title for a long period of time. But at the same time, even though I think it was the right decision for them to put the belt on Julia Hart, my concern is with Kris Statlander. They spent all this time trying to build up Kris Statlander. Now she had just dropped the TBS championship. And keep in mind, this is the woman that beat Jade Cargill not once, but twice. So, question is, what are they going to be doing with Kris Statlander? If she ends up being another woman on the women's roster, then that's going to be a big problem. Because again, she is the woman that beat Jade Cargill, and look where Jade Cargill is right now. Granted, she hasn't had a match in the WWE yet, but clearly they are building Jade up as this big signing. And the only woman to beat Jade Cargill is Kris Statlander. So what are they going to be doing with Kris Statlander after this? Is she going to go towards the main event scene? Is she going to go after Toni Storm's women's title? We're going to have to wait and see. But again, my biggest concern right now is what AEW is going to be doing with Kris Statlander, because they can't just leave Kris Statlander high and dry like that. That's just my opinion. But nonetheless, Julia Hart is the TBS champion, and congratulations to Julia Hart, because she absolutely deserves it, and she put in a lot of work, and she has improved drastically ever since showing up in AEW all those years ago. Tony Schiavone is in the ring with the newest addition, the newest signing to All Elite Wrestling. The camera goes to a different angle, shows the stage, you see all those green flashes, and it plays Elevated by It Lives and Breathes. The newest signing to All Elite Wrestling is the aerial assassin himself, the former IWGP World Champion, the former IWGP US/UK Champion, Will Ospreay. Yes, Will Ospreay is All Elite with AEW. He is a part of AEW. And there's been a lot of speculation on who this mystery signing was going to be. A lot of people were, including myself, thought it was going to be Mercedes Moné, but they probably will be saving the Mercedes Moné signing maybe further on down the line in the future. Maybe they won't sign Mercedes at all. We're going to have to wait and see. But Will Ospreay is All Elite. Of course, this man was set to become the hottest free agent in February of 2024. Of course, there's been a lot of reports of WWE wanting to get their hands on Will Ospreay, and rightfully so. I mean, if you look at all the stuff that Triple H has been doing for, WWE recently, clearly, they wanted to get their hands on Will Ospreay. And ever since Will Ospreay, hired Barry Bloom, this man was going to go for that big money deal. And lo and behold, he is with AEW, but not just at right now. Not as of right now. Yeah, he did sign his contract, but he's going to be finishing up his New Japan contract. So, yeah. But let's go through this whole little segment. Of course, Will Ospreay, he says he's happy to be part of the team, and he's not going to come in just yet. Pop down, bruv. He was 22 when he was a part of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now he is 30 years old. He has committed himself for 8 years, and he will be on the road to Revolution. And when that happens, I will be all yours. But more importantly, I am All Elite, bruv. And Mr. Tony Khan, do us a favor. Line up the best that you got, especially when we get to Wembley Stadium, my man. Because everybody here knows, and I'm about to show all of you what Elite really looks like. Will Ospreay is All Elite with All Elite Wrestling, and I couldn't be more happier. Clearly, there was a lot of speculation as where Will Ospreay was going to go. Will Ospreay right now is 30 years old. He is at the prime of his career, and he is considered the best wrestler, and I agree with this 100%, the best wrestler in the frickin' world. And rightfully so. Now, Fightful has put out an update on the signing of Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay has joined All Elite Wrestling in what Fightful Select is told is a multi-year deal that will go over 3 years. The move happened well before Ospreay's New Japan deal was up, which left many surprised considering the nature of his deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling, how that it happened. We've confirmed, that being Fightful, that Ospreay is still under contract in New Japan Pro Wrestling and will continue to be through January of 2024. We're told that Ospreay had communicated to New Japan that he wasn't re-signing with them, and he had their blessing to sign with AEW, who they have worked with New Japan Pro Wrestling for years now. The relationship between the two sides allowed this deal to be facilitated. Ospreay will still be able to work select dates for New Japan while under his AEW contract. Contract discussions between AEW and Ospreay really picked up in the early part of the fall, and AEW was very optimistic that they'd be able to land him. Ospreay had previously indicated that he'd wish to remain in the UK as far as residence before opening up and saying that he is willing to explore all other options should the move to the US have been necessary. We're told that Ospreay will be able to stay in the UK as part of his AEW deal. Ospreay had been in LA ahead of Full Gear since at least Friday, but was kept away from everybody else, despite Andrew Zarian reporting and Fightful confirming as the signing. And he arrived shortly before the pay-per-view portion of the show started, and the actual contract was not finalized and signed as of the morning. The signing was teased on November 15th ahead of AEW Dynamite without a deal actually signed. We can confirm that WWE has been in contact with Will Ospreay's representation in recent weeks in an effort to gauge interest. The conversation wasn't much of a secret within the company, as they were looking to see what kind of schedule and possible relocation would happen. There was also interest from Impact/TNA Wrestling. Though we have not learned how far those talks got, Ospreay had communicated interest in returning to TNA after appearing there recently. WWE sources that we spoke to claim that they had not gotten into an official word of the signing, but figured by this week that Ospreay was AEW bound. By Friday night's Collision, several talent within AEW were openly discussing the signing. Will Ospreay is All Elite. Clearly, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that Ospreay was on his way to AEW, considering that he has made multiple appearances for AEW since last year. And honestly, you know, this is definitely the right fit for him, because it gives him that option to still work the independents when he wants, and it still gives him the flexibility to really, you know, wrestle for dates for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is what Will Ospreay wants. And honestly, you can't blame Will Ospreay for that. At the end of the day, you know, this man wants to support his family, and that is what he wants to do, and hats off to Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay going to AEW is a great thing. Look, it would have been great if he had signed with the WWE as well. I'm not counting out the WWE. I mean, we'd have tremendous matches. Imagine a Will Ospreay versus Seth Rollins match, a Will Ospreay versus Gunther matches, a Will Ospreay versus AJ Styles match, or Will Ospreay versus Cody Rhodes, Will Ospreay versus Roman Reigns. A shit ton of matches that could have easily had happened in the WWE, but Will Ospreay chose AEW, and you can't blame him for doing that, because again, it just gives him more freedom to do what he wants, because right now he is considered at the top of the top in the industry, and he could just do whatever he wants. He wants to wrestle for New Japan, he can do that. If he wants to go back to TNA, if that relationship between AEW and TNA is still a thing, he could go back to TNA and, you know, just wrestle maybe for their Hard to Kill show. We're going to have to wait and see, but Will Ospreay is All Elite, and with the relationship that AEW and New Japan have, clearly New Japan gave Will Ospreay their blessing to sign with AEW, so that is great. The potential matches that we could see with Will Ospreay, you know, with guys like Hangman, Kenny, Swerve. I mean, we've seen 2 matches with Kenny Omega already, but who's to say we can't get a third? You know, we could get matches like Will Ospreay versus Kenny 3, Swerve, Ospreay versus Hangman, Ospreay versus Jay White, Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy, Ospreay versus Moxley, which I believe we're getting in a 3-way match at Wrestle Kingdom with David Finlay involved. But again, man, there's a lot of possibilities with Will Ospreay, and don't count out the fact that we also have Wembley Stadium, man. Wembley Stadium, you know, tickets are going on sale in the beginning of December, which is a very smart business move, because it gives almost, I'm not saying a full year exactly, but I'm saying almost a full year for AEW to sell enough tickets for that Wembley show, which is very, very, very smart. And clearly they're going to market Will Ospreay all over that Wembley Stadium show because, of course, Will Ospreay is from the UK. This man has been getting superstar treatment for making appearances in AEW. And once he's officially with the company, he's going to get, thrusted in the fire. And this man is going to make a big impact, once he's with AEW. So great to see, Will Ospreay is All Elite. And, wish nothing but the best for Will Ospreay, man. The hottest free agent in the business is now with AEW. Moving on, we got Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page 2. Man, we got a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this match, right? Let's talk about the Swerve and Hangman match. Let's talk about this Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page match. This is their second encounter. This was the Texas Deathmatch. This match was fucking crazy. And I mean that in the best way possible. This match was everything that it needed to be. Their match at Wrestle Dream was great. I loved that match. But this match definitely cemented this feud as an all-time classic. But not only that, if you think about it, when we look at Swerve Strickland's career and where we know he will be, because mark my words, by 2024, this man will be the AEW World Champion. There's no way you look at a guy like Swerve Strickland and just not say superstar, because clearly he is a superstar. He has the potential with a guy like MJF as well. MJF has that potential as well, and he's already doing it with him being a part of the Iron Claw movie. But Swerve has the potential of being that mainstream crossover star with all the other ventures that Swerve Strickland is doing. But if we look back, maybe 10 to 15 years from now at the career of Swerve Strickland and everything that he has accomplished in that time frame in the future, we're going to be looking at this match and be like, this is the match that has elevated Swerve Strickland to that main event level. This is the match right here. This Texas Deathmatch was fucking off the charts. This match was off the charts. And everything about this match was just pure violence on all levels. You have even some people on the internet saying that this is probably one of the most violent matches in the history of wrestling, which I think is a little far-fetched. Granted, this match was very violent, but I've been to GCW shows. I've been to GCW shows and I've seen death matches live. It's crazy. They're crazy fucking matches. But, I mean, we're talking about from a national level. If you're talking about the best, hardcore / death matches from a national level, so like on a WWE, TNA, AEW, there's a lot of matches that you can count. There's John Cena versus JBL at Judgment Day 2005. Triple X versus America's Most Wanted at Turning Point 2004. Sabu versus Abyss in Turning Point 2005. Other matches like the hardcore match between Edge and Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22. Hell, the Texas Death Match that we got this year between Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. There was a lot of fucking crazy shit that we have seen throughout the years on a national level. And if you really want to, compare matches of this caliber to other, death matches that we have seen, this could go down as probably one of the best hardcore / death matches that we have seen in a long, long, long time. I'll go as far as to say this Texas death match between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland was 10 times better than the Texas death match that we got between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page at Revolution. Not to say that match was that match was fucking amazing. But if you really compare it to this match wipes that other match clean. And a large portion of that has to do with the storyline aspect of it. Because the storyline aspect of it is Swerve Strickland, broke into Hangman Page's house and went, he went to his house, broke into his house, said a couple of things, and then left, which left Hangman Page so fucking pissed off he just wanted to murder Swerve Strickland. And that is what happened throughout the majority of this match. Hangman immediately didn't even make an entrance. He just ran and just attacked Swerve Strickland, and we were off to the races. Stuff like that, the intensity, the story, the personal aspect of it, of the feud, really made this match what it was. The finish of the match where Swerve choked out Hangman Page with the chain, shades of what happened at Revolution when Hangman choked out Jon Moxley and made Jon Moxley tap out. In this case, Hangman Page was the one with the chain around his neck, but he did not tap out, but he still passed out, and that led to Swerve Strickland winning the match. This match was damn near perfect. I could even go as far as to say that this could possibly be the match of the year. And I know a lot of people are saying match of the year this, match of the year that, especially with everything that WWE is doing right now, and especially with a lot of matches in AEW. I mean, a lot of people are saying Ospreay versus Omega at Forbidden Door was the match of the year. Roosh versus Bryan Danielson, that could be a contender. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. A lot of matches. Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest. A lot of matches have the potential of being match of the year caliber matches. But if you really want to boil it down, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page needs to be in that discussion because these men put it all on the line. They put it all on the line for like what was it? 20 to 25 minutes this match was. This match was crazy. On all levels, this match was crazy. We're going to go through this match, but like it's just absolutely fucking insane. Hangman goes straight for the attack on Swerve after he makes his entrance, and he ends up hitting the powerbomb. Then after that, he hits the buckshot lariat. Hangman Page hits a chair on the side of the head of Swerve. Hangman then duct tapes Swerve's hands. Then he stapled. Now this part was fucking crazy. This is where it really starts to get intense, and we were not even 10 minutes or not even 5 minutes in this match. Hangman has his son's, refrigerator painting, right? And he staples his own son's refrigerator painting on the mouth of Swerve Strickland, on the side of the cheek on Swerve Strickland. And then he pulls it out of Swerve's face. And then he basically what happens is he basically goes under the head of Swerve, and Swerve is just spilling fucking blood. Think about this. Swerve is spilling blood all over his freaking face. Hangman literally takes himself and he drinks some of the blood of Swerve Strickland and spits it all the way out. Swerve is one sick son of a bitch, dude. I don't know, man, but Swerve is crazy, but Hangman is a savage. Hangman then has a barbed wire chair, but Swerve low blows Hangman. Hangman then staples the chest of Swerve, but then Swerve no-sells it. Swerve then staples the eyes of Hangman, but then Swerve staples himself, and he is smiling, so he's really no-selling those stapling shots. After that, he places the barbed wire chair into the corner, but then he sends Hangman to the barbed wire chair. He grabs the barbed wire and shoves it in the face of Hangman, but then Swerve has the cinder blocks. Of course, Swerve is all famous with those cinder blocks. Both exchange strikes, and we get a lariat countered by Swerve. He drags Hangman to the apron, but then both men continue to exchange strikes. Swerve then bites Hangman. He picks up Hangman, and then he drives him down on Hangman on the cinder blocks. Both men are on the barricade, but then Swerve ends up going for the pile driver onto the top of the frickin' barricade. Swerve then grabs the water bottle and spills it all over his head. Swerve then goes for repeated right hands. We then get a boot by Swerve, but then Hangman catches Swerve and ends up hitting a fall-away slam. So he ends up hitting a fall-away slam. Then Hangman takes the barbed wire. He takes the barbed wire, and what happens, he hits the Orihara moonsault and on the outside. Swerve counters the buckshot after that. Hangman rolls through. Hangman has the chair, but then Swerve boots Hangman with the chair. Then after that, Swerve goes for the tombstone, but then Hangman reverses it and hits a tombstone of his own onto the barbed wire chair. Swerve gets up, beating the count, because again, it's the match is, I believe, submit or surrender. After that, of course, Swerve gets up, beating the 10 count. Hangman hits the chair on Swerve. Both men are on the top. After that, Hangman sets up the Deadeye, but then Swerve escapes. He hits it onto the back of Hangman, but then the barbed wire gets wrapped on the face of Hangman, which was probably the sickest shit that I've seen. Hangman drinking Swerve's blood and spitting it all over the place was one thing. But the visual of this, they even replayed it in slow motion. So what happened was Hangman was sitting like at the top rope, right? He was sitting like on the top rope. Swerve had the chair and he hit it on the back of Hangman, but a portion of the barbed wire caught Hangman, like I believe right around almost his throat and his chest. That visual and the slow motion of it looked so brutal and painful. Oh my God, it was scary as hell. Then after that, he hits a powerbomb on the chair. He hits Hangman with the chair, but then Swerve gets taken out, or I should say, Swerve takes out a black bag, and you would think it's a bag of thumbtacks. But no, it is a bag of glass. And instead of spilling it all over the canvas, he spills it all over the back of Hangman. And what happens is he hits a 450 on the back on the glass. And then he ends up hitting the JML driver. Both men are down. Hangman gets up at the count of 9. Swerve takes out the chairs and a barbed wire board. Hangman then bites the head of Swerve, but then both men are on the top. He hits the avalanche fall-away slam, and then a powerbomb onto the barbed wire on Swerve. Hangman goes for the Deadeye, but then Hangman wraps the barbed wire around the throat of Swerve. Then after that, we get the buckshot lariat by Hangman. Prince Nana pulls Swerve onto the outside, but then Brian Cage ends up coming in and attacks Hangman. Powerbombs Hangman, and then we get the buckle bomb on Hangman. He drives him down, he takes out a table. Cage picks up Hangman, but then Hangman has the barbed wire, and he ends up hitting the rolling elbow. After that, he wraps it on Cage's head. He ends up hitting the lariat. Prince Nana comes in. He hits Hangman with the chair. Prince Nana tries to run away. He gets caught, but Prince Nana tries to entertain Hangman Page and tries to do the dance. And after that, what happens is he gets caught, and Hangman ends up hitting the Deadeye on Nana through the table on the outside. Then out of nowhere, Swerve comes in with the cinder blocks and explodes those cinder blocks on the back of Hangman. After that, Swerve has the chain, the same chain that Hangman Page choked out Jon Moxley and made him tap out at Revolution. He grabbed those chains and he wraps it around Hangman. Damn near chokes him out. Hangman does not get up at the count of 10. Swerve gets the win, and the Texas Deathmatch is over. Swerve defeats Hangman Page in his own game. What a match. What a match, man. Just again, what hasn't been, what have I not have said about this match? I've said a lot of shit about this match. This match, again, man, you can't really, if you think about it, you can't say anything bad about this match. You know, you see a lot of people on the internet complaining about the blood spot with Hangman Page and him spitting all over, spitting Swerve's blood, drinking Swerve's blood. Like, you can't, people are complaining about a spot like that just because it's happening in AEW. I guarantee you right now, if that spot had happened in the WWE, fans would literally celebrate all over and be like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. The only reason why they are complaining about that particular spot is because of the fact that it's AEW, and that's it. These fans, all they give a shit about is the initials and their allegiance to those particular initials. They don't give about the story of a particular match, and they don't give a shit about how good or bad a match is. They will only complain about something just because it is not their company, and that is it. That is the true nature of wrestling fans. So don't listen to those fans because they are the stupidest fans alive. Okay, don't listen to the IWC because they're retarded on all levels. But again, the spectacle, the aura of this match, the violence and the brutality was very good, and it only added to the intensity of the story. That is what made Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page what it was. You could say, oh, they did all these crazy spots, but they did all those spots for a reason. That is, again, why this match was so special. There was a reason behind every single spot that they did. And there was a reason why. Hangman had a legitimate reason to beat the shit out of Swerve Strickland because Swerve Strickland fucking broke into his house. Stuff like that makes matches like this legendary. And we're going to be talking about this match 10 to 15 years from now, and we're going to say this is the match that propelled Swerve Strickland to that main event level. This is the match that, will spearhead him to the main event scene and will help him become the AEW World Champion someday. Because mark my words, it's not a matter of if Swerve Strickland will win the AEW World Championship. It's a matter of when. Swerve Strickland, mark my fucking words, in 2024 will be the AEW World Champion. Period. Those are my thoughts on the Texas Deathmatch. Moving on. We're not going to be talking about this match a lot because, honestly, this match was kind of a sleeper for me. With all due respect, there's no way you could follow a match of, like, Swerve and Hangman and get another banger of a match like that. But we got Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, the Golden Jets, taking on the Young Bucks. Interesting match. Of course, the story of the match is Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho are teaming up, and the Young Bucks are just not happy about it. And it's safe to say, me as a fan, the Young Bucks, I don't want to say they have gotten stale, but the Young Bucks are not where they should be. And from what we have seen, it looks like the Young Bucks are gearing themselves for a legitimate heel turn, and they're really trying to go to a different direction, and rightfully so, because again, the Young Bucks throughout this whole year, after the whole trio stuff, they really haven't been doing anything, and honestly, they're just not where they need to be. I don't know if it's a lack of motivation. I don't know what it is, but again, they're not where they need to be. So I'm glad that they're finally, trying to do something with the Young Bucks. But I'm not really going to go through this match a lot. Again, to me, this match was a kind of a sleeper to me. We get a moonsault by Kenny on the outside. Kenny goes to the top. He hits a crossbody on Nick. Nick rolls through for the cover and a kick out, but then we get a backslide by Kenny. We get a knee by Kenny, but then Matt tags in. We get a shoulder tackle. After that, we get a line salt on the Bucks, but then Jericho tries to go for the walls. But then Matt escapes and is in control. Matt tries to apply the walls, but then Jericho goes for the inside cradle. We then get a spinning kick by Nick on Jericho, and then we get a dunk by Kenny. We get a DDT by Matt, but then we get a roll-up by Matt on Jericho and a near fall. Then Jericho applies the walls on Matt Jackson, but then Kenny drives Nick onto the outside and sends him to the barricade. Then Jericho still has the walls applied, but then both Jericho and Matt exchange strikes. Jericho goes to the top, but then Matt catches Jericho, and then Matt goes for the double Northern Light suplex. We get a German suplex by Nick on Kenny on the apron, but then we get a running bulldog by Jericho on Matt Jackson. Nick goes for the senton. After that, the senton atomico, I should say. But then after that, Jericho fights back. He goes to the top. We get a Hurricane Rana by Jericho, but then Nick Jackson hits the low blow without the referee looking. Kenny comes in. He questions Nick, and then he turns around, and he low blows Kenny. Nick goes for the Judas effect. Yes, Nick Jackson hits the Judas effect. We get a cover into near fall when Kenny makes the save. Kenny gets sent to the outside, but then Nick goes for a somersault. BETE trigger on Jericho. We get a cover into near fall. We get a roll-up by Jericho, but then Jericho fights off the Bucks with a series of super kicks. Jericho goes for the low blow without the referee looking. Kenny sees both Jericho and Nick. He points at Jericho, and he hits the knee on Nick Jackson. We get a Snapdragon on Matt, and he picks up Nick, but then Nick goes for the Poison Rana. Matt picks up Kenny, and he ends up hitting the One-Winged Angel, and we get a cover into near fall. Nick goes for the springboard, but then he gets caught into the Codebreaker, but then Kenny picks up Matt. Kenny hits the German, but then we get a cover and a near fall. After that, Kenny runs into a super kick by Nick, but then Jericho comes in. Matt ends up going for a series of super kicks, but Kenny ends up hitting the V-trigger. Picks up Matt, he hits the One-Winged Angel, and we get a cover, and Jericho and Kenny Omega get the win. And it looks like they stole their tag team title shots because the Young Bucks were the number one contenders. And it looks like that now that number one contendership is with the Golden Jets. After the match, the Bucks were pissed and they threw a temper tantrum. Nick is throwing chairs around, hitting, the chair onto the ring post. They are just pissed the fuck off. And that was that match. Again, great match. It got really great near the end. Again, I assume that we're going to be, getting, a new direction for the Young Bucks. And just, there's a lot of speculation on the Young Bucks right now, about what the Young Bucks are doing. They're going to be taking some time off, apparently. I have no idea. Brandon Cutler has been tweeting some weird tweets about the Young Bucks saying, oh, yeah, BTE is over. The Young Bucks are taking a break, as per my sources. I don't know. It's very weird, but hopefully the Young Bucks get back on track with this new heel turn that they are geared up for. Moving on to the main event. Adam Cole taking on Jay White for the AEW World Championship. Of course, Adam Cole is on crutches. Nobody comes to the aid of Adam Cole, by the way. Jay White lays down, mocks Adam Cole. The ambulance comes out. It's MJF. MJF limps his way onto the ring, and meanwhile, you got a shit ton of people trying to protect MJF. Meanwhile, nobody did the same thing for Adam Cole when he was on his way down to the ring. Again, logic. Please use logic. I don't know why. I don't know why that was the case. So now we got MJF versus Jay White for the AEW World Championship. Great match. Again, of course, a lot of logic gaps building up with the angle that they did. They really, if you think about it, they did not need to do the angle that they did. Because, again, there was no payoff in the end. MJF came back, and you as a fan watching the pay-per-view, you knew MJF was going to come back. So, yeah, that was that. But let's go through the match. MJF goes for a right hand, but then MJF sells his injured leg, and that was the case throughout the majority of the match. Basically, Jay White was just working on MJF. I'm not going to go through really the beginning of the match because basically the majority of the beginning of the match was basically MJF getting annihilated by Jay White. What happens is Jay White is in control. He continues to work on MJF. He sends MJF to the outside. We get a chop by Jay White, but then Max fights back. He hits a DDT on the floor, and then MJF exposes the announce table. Takes Jay White to the table, and the table breaks. MJF goes to the top. He ends up hitting a badass elbow drop on Jay White. At this point, both men are down. MJF drags Jay White into the ring. He breaks the count, but then Jay White catches MJF, and he hits the dragon screw. He takes MJF up. MJF is upside down, but then Jay pushes MJF at this point around. After that, he goes to the top, but then MJF gets up and drops Jay down. Jay White comes back. He goes to the top and he hits the avalanche Uranagi. After that, Jay White goes for a series of chops. MJF gets up. MJF is in his face. We get a thumb to the eye, but then we get an elbow drop. An elbow by Jay, knocking down MJF. After that, what happens is we get a flatliner by Jay, followed by a deadlift German. After that, we get a series of roll-up reversals. MJF takes Jay White and hits the tombstone. MJF, with the back elbow, he goes to the top. After that, he hits a dropkick onto the arm of Jay White, but then we get the heat seeker by Jay, countered by Jay White. Jay White is on the apron, but then MJF runs and leaps into Jay White with the cutter on the outside. Then MJF sends Jay back into the ring. We get a cover and a near fall. MJF pulls down the knee pad and he tries to take Jay, but MJF collapses. Doc Samson comes in and he tells Doc Samson no. Doc Samson looks really stupid throughout the majority of this whole show because of the angle that they did with Adam Cole. Like, why would Doc Samson let Adam Cole wrestle in replacement of MJF if Adam Cole's injured? That's so fucking dumb. But whatever. MJF tells him no. Jay White catches him with the dragon screw, and then he hits another dragon screw, and then he applies the figure four. Jay spits in the face of Adam Cole, but then Cole has the towel in his hand. Yes, the towel. If you guys do not recall, back in Full Gear 2019, when it was Cody Rhodes versus Chris Jericho, MJF was in the corner and he had the towel, but he actually threw the towel, ending the match. What happened here? Nothing happened. Cole has the towel in his hand. The crowd says no. MJF almost gets to the ropes, but Jay pulls him back. MJF reverses the figure four, but then Jay gets hit with the ropes. Cole has the ROH title. And then what happens is Jay White snatches it away from Adam Cole. And Jay White hits MJF with the ROH title. We get a cover and a close ass near fall. After that, what happens is he grabs the leg of MJF. Jay gets knocked down, or I should say he gets knocked down, knocking down the referee. Adam Cole gives him the Dynamite Diamond Ring. But then what happens is Jay White drags him down. How did Adam Cole get the Dynamite Diamond Ring, by the way? It's very weird. Jay drags him, he wrenches his leg, and what happens is Jay has the ring. So now Jay White is in possession of the ring. He flips off Adam Cole. Jay almost hits Max, but then Max hits the low blow, but the guns come in. Then Jay White tries to go for the Blade Runner, but it gets countered. MJF ends up getting the ring. He hits Jay White with the ring. We get a cover. And what happens is MJF retains the AEW World Championship. Great match. Great match overall. A lot of weird stuff building up to this match. Again, they did not need to do a lot of the crazy shenanigans that they did building up to the match. Again, I understand why they did it because, they wanted to, build intrigue for the pay-per-view, and really they wanted the viewer to be like, oh shit, what the hell is going to happen? I understand that. But really, after MJF retained, nothing really happened. We had no involvement, no attack from the Devil and his crew. We had no Devil reveal, which I knew coming in we were not going to get a Devil reveal. They are going to build that up further on down the line, and we're probably going to be getting a Devil reveal at World's End. But again, they did not really need to do the angle that they did because it really served no purpose at the end of the day. The angle that they did with MJF getting injured and then Adam Cole in replacement of MJF, that whole thing made no sense because, again, there was no real follow-up and there was just no reason behind it. They did not need to do what they did at the end of the day. But nonetheless, the match was great. Adam Cole is still injured. Is it a work? Is it not? We're going to have to wait and see. Who is the Devil? That's the interesting question. Who is the devil? You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's probably, you know, maybe Jack Perry. My best bet is 100% it's Adam Cole. Adam Cole is definitely the devil, the guy under the devil mask. How they're going to play into that, we have no idea, but I know for a fact that is going to be the main storyline as we head towards World's End on December 30th. That is going to be the biggest talking point of AEW throughout December 30th. Who is under the devil mask? And I think that's enough intrigue for that pay-per-view alone. But MJF is still your AEW World Champion. But yeah, that was my AEW Full Gear 2023 review. Overall thoughts on the show. I thought the show was phenomenal. It was a great show. Great pay-per-view. AEW, even though the product is not where it needs to be, and I don't give a shit if you are an AEW diehard, the product is not where it needs to be. There's a lot of issues when it comes to the product, primarily on the weekly television side. If you think about it, the attendance, especially for those television tapings like Dynamites and Collisions, are sadly embarrassing. The Collision ratings are in the fucking toilet, but their pay-per-view buy rates are still consistent, and their pay-per-view attendances have been really good. Their pay-per-views have been home runs. You know, that's the good thing I can say about AEW is that their pay-per-views have been phenomenal, and I've really enjoyed their last few pay-per-views, like starting with Forbidden Door, All In, All Out, and Wrestle Dream, and now Full Gear. All of those shows were top-notch, and as Tony Khan would state, it was their best string of pay-per-views that they had in the company's existence. But nonetheless, I thought Full Gear was a great show. The crowd in the forum was great. MJF and Jay White, even though there was a lot of logic holes, it was still a pretty good main event. Swerve and Hangman was easily the best match of the entire night. The opening six-man was great, and a lot of other stuff happened. Of course, we had new champions crowned, like Tony Storm and Julia Hart, and a lot of other stuff happened, and now all eyes are set on World's End. Of course, we have the Continental Classic starting tonight on Dynamite, which I will be talking about, and much more as we head towards World's End with the reveal of the devil himself. But yeah, that was my AEW Full Gear 2023 review. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'm on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc channel in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, please make sure to check out my AEW Dynamite review. I will be covering AEW Dynamite plus SmackDown, as well as this Saturday's Survivor Series. Yes, Survivor Series War Games is this Saturday. I will be giving you guys my full in-depth review because I'm very excited for that show, and there's a lot of speculation regarding Survivor Series. So be on the lookout for that Survivor Series review. But as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays signing out. I'll see you guys later for AEW Dynamite. Peace.